story time about how my best friend and I were dating the same guy. So a little background information, I was 15 and it was my freshman year of high school. And I had been dating this guy for 3 months who we're gonna call Jacob. He was a part of the popular group and was known for cheating on all his past girlfriends. But why would I see that as a red flag? Because I'm fucking dumb. Anyways, of course he was cheating on me too, and people would tell me that. At first I wanted to leave him, but the problem was he came from a super rich family and he was really cute. So in reality, I really only wanted to stay with him so that way he would keep spoiling me with expensive gifts. He would literally buy me anything and everything I wanted. So my best friend, who we can call Taylor, she came over for a sleepover. The whole night we talked about Jacob cheating on me and she asked me why I had not broken up with him yet. So I told her why I wouldn't leave and then she hyped me up. She was like, period sis, do what you gotta do. Well then I came up with this super good plan for my best friend and I both to get gifts from him and use him. So then I came out and I said, you should be his side chick. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend and I were dating the same guy. So like I said before, he was cheating on me 24/7, but he was spending money on me 24/7. That's the reason why I wouldn't leave him. So then I told my best friend that she should be his side chick. So that way we could both use him for his money. So Taylor started flirting with him to try and make him want her too. And I may have given it a little push by giving her his Snapchat, so she tried to slide in his DMs and then also tried texting him on Snapchat. At first, his cheating ass did not want to do anything with her. And I was like, the one time. Anyways, he was like, I'm with your best friend right now. I don't think we should do this. But of course, like all boys who cheat, he ended up meeting up with her. And they started sneaking around. Meanwhile, I knew all the tea. Taylor was telling me everything. Taylor started getting things from him 24/7 and he looked so stupid. Well, then we decided to fuck with him one more time. Like for part 3. Story time about how my best friend and I were dating the same guy at the same time. So like I said, she was sneaking around with him. Meanwhile, she was telling me everything. He was buying her gifts, he was buying me gifts, so everything was perfect. But we had one little trick left up our sleeves. We decided that we would both make a wish list and put everything that we wanted on there. And at the end of the month, we would have a sleepover, bring everything that we got. Well, on the night of the sleepover, we brought everything, and let me tell you, this filled up my king-size bed. There was stuff all on the floor. So what did I do? I took a video of it, and I uploaded it to Instagram, tagging him and his friends, and wrote a long-ass caption, basically saying, if you cross me, this is what will happen. You'll get played. He was so embarrassed, his friends and everyone at school basically laughed at his dumb ass. Well, he ended up telling his mommy about it, and they came and talked to my parents, and they pretty much just told them to get the fuck over it, like, your son did what he did willingly. She didn't do anything wrong. She meaning me. My dad was kind of mad at me, but my mom was super impressed about it, and we laugh about it all the time.
Story time about how I found out that my boyfriend was trying to get with another girl on Valentine's Day. Okay, there's a lot that goes into this story time, so let me break it down for you real quick. I was a sophomore and my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 4 months now. And he was a junior. Well, there was this girl that he was for some reason obsessed with in his Spanish class. She was a freshman. And I know you're probably thinking, oh, well, how did you know he was obsessed with her? Well, he would Snapchat this girl 24/7.
Even his friends told me he was obsessed with her.
So I talked to him and I told him I was uncomfortable with how much he was talking to this girl. And he said, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'll block her. Now, I didn't ask him to do that, but it made me feel more confident in how he felt about me. Well, Valentine's Day comes around. And we didn't talk all day until he came to pick me up. I wished him a happy Valentine's Day and got left undelivered. So we get to the restaurants and we decide to put our phones at the end of the table so that way we would be more focused on each other. Well, he goes to the bathroom and then I see this name pop up on his phone. Like for part 2.
Part 2. So, like I said, I saw this name on his phone, and there was something special about this name. So, whenever I kept streaks, I would put the word streak, and then an emoji, and then the person's name. And he got the idea that instead of keeping her name, he would put it as streak. So I was like, that's really fucking weird. And at first I was like, what the fuck? So I opened his phone, and what do you know? It's from that girl. And she was replying back to a big paragraph that he sent her. And we had school that same day. So at 6:30 in the morning, this girl got a big paragraph from my boyfriend about how she's such a beautiful, amazing girl and that she deserves somebody who's going to take her out and buy her flowers and stuff. And how if she wanted to go out to dinner, let him know. He took an extremely long time in the bathroom, so the waiter came to our table. So I ordered $300 worth of food for myself. So when he came back, I told him that I had to go call my mom and I left. And he was stuck with a $400.
Am I the asshole for trying to prove if someone's boobs are fake? One of my 30 female close friends, male 30, went on a date with this girl. The next day, we all went to the gym and he was raving about her body, especially her chest. I took one good look at her and proceeded to tell my friend that her boobs were most definitely fake. I could tell right away that they were a bit too perfect to be real. My friend then asked if it's because I've seen her naked before in the locker room. I actually haven't, but that doesn't matter. He begs me to find out if they're fake or not, but I refuse. The problem is, now that I put the thought into his head, he doesn't want to date her anymore. A few days later, I was in the sauna at the gym when my friend's date, Sidra, walks in. I overhear her telling her friend how she went on this amazing first date and he asked her out on a second date, but out of nowhere calls and cancels and says he doesn't want to see her again. I scoff loudly and apologize for eavesdropping on their conversation. She then starts removing her towel while introducing herself to me. I got up to shake her hand but lost my balance and fell right into her while my hands grabbed onto her chest to break my fall. And, well, they're most definitely real. I then tell my friend Jerry about what happened at the gym and he freaks out because he canceled his date based on my assumption. I feel really bad for making the assumption first, but Jerry is also at fault for canceling a date over such a simple matter. To find out what happens next, tune into Seinfeld, coming to Netflix October 1st.
Storytime about when I ghosted my boyfriend of 5 years and his friends. I at 33 was dating a guy at 39 for 5 years. After 3 years or so, we moved in together, but he was away a lot for work. He had a camp job that was 3 weeks in, 1 week home. He and I always liked to play computer games and were in a Discord with his friends. My friends also joined the Discord and everyone got along very well. Over the last year, he started getting a bit distant when he wasn't home, but I would see him online and voice chat with his friends and my friends. If I joined the chat, he would go silent. There were times we would play late at night together on the weekends, but one day he told me that he got in trouble at the camp for being too loud at night. He stopped phoning me and would only message me. Sometimes he wouldn't talk to me for a few days. 3 months ago, he wasn't online, but a few of his friends were. I popped into the chat to say hi and someone asked where he was to someone else. The friend responded with, "Oh, he's probably with his other half. They usually spend a lot of time together at this time of day. He'll be back later." I went, "Hold the phone. What?" "But I'm his girlfriend and we live together when he's not at camp." It got silent and then one of the people said, "I hate to break it to you, but he has never had a camp job. He lives in the city with his girlfriend and travels out once a week." I messaged him saying, "Hey, someone just said you have another girlfriend? What the hell?" He sent me a message saying that they were lying to me and blah blah blah. I ended up clarifying with his friend on who the other woman was. It was a girl that I played with regularly. She was a good friend or so I thought. I also casually mentioned it in voice chat with her one day. "Yeah, we've been together for 6 months, living together for 3. I know it's fast, but he's a great guy." I just laughed and said, "That's great for you." I didn't break up with him. I pretended to believe him. In the meantime, I had been looking at purchasing a house for the last year and was about to close on a deal. Our finances were completely our own and I hadn't told him that I found one that I put an offer in for. After closing the deal, it took a month for me to receive the keys. The day I moved into the house, January 2nd, I put his things in storage, sent him a message on Discord to give him the storage details, moved into my new house, then I left the Discord and went full ghost mode with him and his friends. I also changed my phone number and deleted my Facebook. I told a few select friends about what happened and gave them my new number with instructions not to tell them anything about where I am or my new details. My friends threw me a housewarming party a few days ago. My best friend said that my ex is frantically looking for me. He has been calling all my friends and saying he's worried about me. She had told him that I knew he was cheating and that I was gone. Apparently he cried. She also went so far as to pop into the Discord with him, his friends, my friends, and the other woman to say, "Hey, did you get your stuff after she broke up with you for cheating on her?" Apparently he's single now and the other woman kicked him out and broke up with him. She also asked my friend to send me her sincerest apologies over everything. She wants my friend to give me her number so that we can talk. I'm not sure if I should, but I love my best friend. She totally had my back.
Story time about my worst trip off LSD. So one of the kids in my friend group was about to leave for Arizona. And we would always talk about how we need to trip together before he leaves. And anytime that I would trip off acid, I would go to my one plug. Well, he ran out, so we had to go to somebody else. And I've never tried this kid's stuff before. But I just said, fuck it, YOLO. Which should not have been my motto at the time. But it was. So that night, we're in the car, and one of our friends is driving because he's sober, obviously. And before I put the tab on my tongue, I started to get really nervous. And I have never felt like that before I've taken acid. But I kind of just said fuck it, and I put it on my tongue. So we go pick up 2 more people that I'm not really close with. So then we make our way over to our other friend's apartment. And I'm kind of feeling it, but not really. But then as soon as we walk into that apartment, I start tripping balls. And you know, everything was going good, but then my dumb ass decided to look in the fucking mirror. And as soon as I look in the mirror, I see myself smile back at me, like for part 2. Okay, part 2. So like I said, I look in the mirror and I see myself smiling back at me. And that's whenever everything went south so quick. I sat on the bed, tried to pull myself together because I didn't want to make a fucking scene in front of everybody. But then I got caught in this fucking loop. And if you don't know what the loop is, then I'm going to tell you what it is. It's basically where you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And then I started looking around at everybody and it looked like their faces were melting. One of my friends got up off his chair, walked to the other side of the room, and I watched him do that. But when I look back over at the fucking chair, he was still sitting there. So I looked at my one friend that was sober, who I was actually really close with, and I think he saw the look in my eye and he was like, "Do you want to leave now?" And I just shook my head, yeah, like I could not deal with that shit anymore. So we go to his car and then we drive to my boyfriend's house. Because I could not go home. I would have got crucified. Well, we get in the house and as soon as his mom sees me, she knows that something's wrong, like for part 3.
Okay, part 3. So like I said, I walked in and she knew that something was wrong with me right away. Because she was like, "Oh, I have a letter from your boyfriend." And usually I would run up, grab it, read it really quickly because I would only get like 1 letter a week. But instead I ran downstairs because her face was fucking melting. So 5 minutes later, she has to come downstairs and help me get dressed into my pajamas because I forgot how to dress myself. I didn't want to be left alone that night, so my friend stayed in the basement with me. So he went and tried to go to sleep, but he couldn't because I was watching Butterfly Effect for 8 hours straight. Like, that was the only thing that could calm me down. But I still don't even know all the freaking words to it, which is weird. Like, he would try to change the video and somehow I end up back to Butterfly Effect. And then he tried to kiss me. So he left the next morning because he had to go to work, which was at like 11 a.m. And I took this tab at 8 p.m. the day before. So I was getting texts like, where are you? You're supposed to be home now. So I had to go home and act normal in front of everybody while I'm still tripping balls. And I also got grounded for coming home late because I could not come home at the right time because I was tripping so hard. And this lasted for about 24 hours.
Story time about how I found out I had a stalker. This gets really scary, so let's start. I was living by myself in 2016 in Los Angeles. I was working a lot in commercials and modeling and doing a bunch of stuff, and I had my own little studio apartment on Melrose Avenue. It was super cute, and I loved it. I felt very safe. 2 months into the lease, I booked some acting work, so I had to be on set for 3 days in a row, and I stayed in a hotel while I was on set, so I actually didn't get to go home. When I finally got home, I noticed that my fridge had moved about 2 feet to the right, which is very noticeable because that's a large space to cover, and I noticed that my fridge was just in a different place. So I called the landlord and asked her if they had to come into my apartment for some reason, and she said no. I didn't want to freak out, so I just tried to ignore it, and I thought, no one's coming into my apartment, that would be insane. For the next couple of days, I kept trying to justify how my fridge would move. I even thought that my apartment was probably being haunted by a ghost, until one day after an audition, I come home and I find that Part 2 of Stalker Story Time. So I come home and I notice that my fridge has moved again, and I know this because I put it back and it was moved another 2 tiles, which is about 2 feet. So I quickly call the landlord and I say to her, can you please check any cameras if you guys have any? And lo and behold, she said, yes, we do have security cameras. Let's check right now. Come over to my place. So I run over to her apartment. She starts pulling up footage from that same day, but it's taking very long, and I ask her to actually check footage from the past few weeks so that I can see if anyone had been in my apartment the first time. So she pulls up the camera pointing to my hallway, but unfortunately the quality was so blurry and my door was just outside of the scope of the lens. Either way, I could still get kind of a glimpse. So she fast forwards through a few hours, and finally I see a shadow. I tell her to stop and rewind and slow it down. And what I see literally made me poo my pants. Someone in a green shirt was right outside of my door and you could barely see their shoulder. Part 3, Stalker Story Time. At the corner of the screen, I see there's a green shirt and it's like the shoulder of someone, and it seems like they just disappeared into the door. Of course, I instantly started to freak out. Can you guys imagine seeing that? I was hyperventilating. I started to cry and she was trying to calm me down. Just to be safe, she called the owner of the building and asked if they had sent a repairman. They said no. Of course, I called the police. They said if there was no immediate physical danger, they couldn't come. So they didn't. Of course, I installed cameras. I had an app so that I could check everything remotely whenever I was out of my apartment, and I never saw anything. After that, I would put the coffee table and a dresser in front of the door so that I could make sure nobody would come in while I was sleeping. I was very paranoid the whole time. I would cry every single day. To this day, I still don't know who it was. I don't know if they took anything. I don't know if they put anything in. I think after that time, they did not come back in, but obviously I did move out a month later. It was very scary. I started taking kickboxing and I still take it to this day. I think self-defense is super important, especially if you live by yourself.
Story time. My boyfriend beat up his ex-girlfriend because she tried to kill me. So it was my sophomore year in high school, and I had just gotten with this guy who was fresh out of a relationship. And let me tell you a little bit about his ex-girlfriend. So before him and I even started dating, him and his ex-girlfriend were together for like 2 years. And guys, this girl was fucking psychotic. Like, let me give you a quick example. Last year, I had a class with him and her, and the teachers assigned partners for this one project. Well, her boyfriend got paired up with this other girl. And anybody who would even talk to her boyfriend would get jumped by her and 8 of her friends. So his girlfriend starts being buddy-buddy with this girl. And his girlfriend goes, oh, do you want to come to the bathroom to hit my dab pen? So the girl says, yeah, thinking that she's being all nice and shit. So they both go to the bathroom and they're gone for like 25 minutes. So I asked to go to the bathroom because I want to see what's going on. So I walk into the auditorium bathroom and nobody's really around that bathroom. And this bitch is getting beat the fuck up. Like for part 2. Okay, part 2. Okay, so like I said, I walk in and this bitch is getting her shit rocked. Like there were like 5 girls in there beating the shit out of her. All of them just look at me, so I walk out and go back to the classroom. And the one girl went to the hospital and the other girl got suspended. So back to present day. So after school that day, I get a ride with him and his friends to his house. Well, as we're all driving to his house, we realize that his ex-girlfriend's car is right behind us. And it's literally her and all of her friends. And at this point, my boyfriend's really fed up with her shit. Because she keeps following me around school, texting me saying she's gonna kill me, saying he got her pregnant, always says that he's been cheating on me with her. So my boyfriend pulls over the car, and at this point, I think it's a trap. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna let me get beat the fuck up. Well, he tells me to stay in the car. He gets out and walks over to her driver's door and tells her to get out of the car. So her and all her friends get out, and one of her friends starts punching him. While he's distracted with that, his ex runs over to the car, opens the door, and pulls out a fucking knife. Like for part 3. Okay, part 3. She fucking has a knife up to my neck, screaming at me. And I'm staying quiet as fuck because I do not want to get my throat slit by this bitch. So all I see is my boyfriend rip this bitch out of the car and start stomping her in the fucking ground. And whenever he went and ripped her out of the car, the knife like slashed my leg open, so there's fucking blood everywhere. And we're like at the beginning of his cul-de-sac, so all the fucking neighbors are outside watching him stomp this bitch into the ground. And then one of her friends comes around the other side of the car, grabs me by my hair, rips me out of the car, starts beating the shit out of me. So then one of his friends starts beating up that bitch too. So obviously the cops were called. My boyfriend went to jail. She also went to jail. And after that happened, my parents made me move schools. But after that, word got around that they were dating again. Good luck to the next bitch.
Here's a story time about when I got sexually harassed by a famous showrunner in Hollywood. I find it extremely important to share these story times because I want to avoid this from happening to anyone else, and of course I just want to get the story out there so that people can become more educated and aware. I think it's atrocious what's happening in Hollywood, and I just want to do my part. Please like and share this. I want as many people as possible to see this, and I think it's finally time for me to speak up. It was 2016, I was living by myself in Los Angeles, and I was lucky enough to work as an actress. One day I was walking down Melrose Avenue, and I heard a man's voice yell out, "Hey, hey," right behind me, and I turn around, and right beside me is this strange man, and he says, "Hey, are you an actress or a model?" I replied saying, "Yes, why?" He said, "I'd like to have a photo shoot with you." He pulled out his phone and Googled his name because he really wanted me to see how important he was in Hollywood. He insisted about 10 times that I give him my phone number, and because I just didn't have a good feeling about him, I gave him my email address instead. For the next couple of weeks, Part 2. For the next 2 weeks, he would email me almost every single day asking me when I would want to shoot. The fact that he was chasing me so much really turned me off, and I had no desire to shoot with him at all. I was honest with him though, and I said, "Look, your behavior is kind of odd, so I don't think I'm going to be able to shoot with you." He kept swearing up and down that he didn't have any bad intentions, and he sent me his website so that I could take a look at his past work, and I saw on his website that he had shot with many other models and actresses, so I thought to contact one of them. I messaged one on Instagram, but she did not get back to me. Finally, I gave him my phone number just to see what kind of vibe I would get off of text. He messages me and starts begging to set up a photo shoot. Again, this turned me off. I didn't have a good feeling. I mentioned it to my best friend, and she was like, "Don't worry, just set up the photo shoot and I'll go with you. This might be a good opportunity since he's a showrunner and maybe the pictures will come out good." We set up the photo shoot, and it had been about a month since we first met. That weekend, my friend and I go to his house for the photo shoot. Thank God I did not go by myself. This is where it gets disturbing. Part 3 is up. Part 3. We show up to his beautiful house with 2 Teslas in the driveway. He tells my friend to go to his office because she brought her laptop so she could do some work. We go to the backyard and we start taking some pictures. We started with headshots, nothing crazy. We shot for a total of 1 minute before he started asking me weird questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married? Do you live by yourself? I answered these questions thinking it was weird, but I just said, "It's okay, relax." Then he asked if I masturbated and if I fucked people. I told him to stop taking pictures, and he said, "Why are you overreacting? What's the matter with you? I was just trying to get to know you. This is what I do with my models." Of course, he was trying to put it on me like I was the weird one. I went to my best friend and I said, "We're leaving right now," and she said, "What happened? Tell me now." I told her everything he had just asked me, and she said, "Yeah, let's go." I asked him for the SD card, but he said it was his private property and I couldn't touch it. On the way back to my apartment, I felt violated. I was crying and hyperventilating. My best friend was there with me the whole time. I appreciate her so much. I call my manager and I tell him what happened, and he said, "Well, we can't do anything against this guy. You don't want to get blacklisted."
To hold on to hold on to. Give me something to hold on to hold on to. Give me something to hold on to hold on to. Give me something to hold on to hold on to. We going up, yeah, we going up, baby. Give me, give me. We going up, yeah, we going up, baby.
Am I wrong for not lying about why I could not remove my headscarf? I, 24 female, am a bridesmaid for one of my closest friends, Jackie, 24. I've been so excited to help. I was in charge of the bridal shower, the games, decorations, and menu. I left the guest list to Jackie's sister. Due to religious reasons, I wear a headscarf. I love and am very proud of it. In the group chat with other bridesmaids, I was talking about how excited I am to attend a girls-only event. I recently dyed my hair and wanted to show it off. I even paid extra to ask for a girls-only staff that day. Day of, as guests arrive, I realize one of them is Tori, 26 female. I know Tori as a family friend of Jackie's, but the few times I met her, it was before her transition to female. I was aware of it, but unaware she was coming to the shower. I don't mind at all, of course, and she's a lovely person, but I decided to keep my scarf on. As everyone's eating later, I'm passing by the tables to make sure everyone's good, and one of my bridesmaids mentioned that they hadn't gotten to see my hair and they wanted to see it. I tried to dismiss it at first or say, oh, I'll show you later, but the other girls at the table got curious. I got uncomfortable and I just said, oh, I'm actually not really comfortable taking it off right now. When pressed as to why, I said there's guests I don't feel comfortable taking it off in front of. There was a collective, oh, and I thought, cool, that's over. But one girl got aggressive and asked if I was referring to Tori. She's loud and the other tables turn to look. I don't answer. The girl asks if I wear one around men, so I say yes. She then says there's no men here, so clearly you should take it off. I tell her again that I'm keeping it on. Another bridesmaid defends me and tells the girl to chill out. Tori comes over and says me not taking it off is a slap in the face to her identity. I'm just shocked and had no clue what to do. Eventually, Tori and a few girls left saying that they felt it was disrespectful. I feel awful that this ruined a beautiful day for my friend. It's causing more trouble with people threatening to leave the wedding over discrimination towards me or towards Tori. I don't think I was in the wrong. Just as Tori can be Tori, I can be me. I feel like it'd be the equivalent of me making Tori or someone else adjust for me. I feel like we should just accept and respect each other rather than be woke one-sided. My question is more about being honest as to why I couldn't. Jackie is on my side, but Jackie's sister is giving her hell for it, saying she purposely left out that detail in the guest list to test me. Jackie says I should have brushed it off and said I was having a bad hair day or avoid giving an answer. I didn't ever mention Tori's name in my answer, and I don't think my answer was rude, but seeing how much stress it's causing, I'm thinking I should have made up a lie. So, am I wrong for how I handled the situation?
Storytime on why I don't trust male doctors, specifically the ones that work with the female body. So the summer of 2020, a couple days before my sister's birthday trip to Miami, this might be TMI, but my vajayjay was tingling. It felt weird, but I ignored it. The next day, it was so painful that I couldn't even sit down. But I assumed that it was an ingrown hair because I would get them time to time. Anyways, later that night, I met up with my boyfriend to go to his house. As we were walking, he noticed that I was limping. I, of course, told him my whole situation about what was going on down there. He said, the pain is hurting to the point where you're limping. You should head to the hospital. So we went to the hospital immediately so I could find out what was going on. So we went to the hospital immediately so we could find out what was going on. And there were times of that night my boyfriend assumed that I had some type of STD, which wasn't the case. When the first doctor saw me and checked me out, they were so confused what was going on, so they brought in a different doctor. And I'll get into what exactly that doctor did to my body in part 2. Part 2 on why I do not trust male doctors, specifically the ones that work with the female body. So the second doctor came in and he told me to open up my legs. And this man immediately took 3 fingers and shoved it in. When I tell you that was the most painful experience I've ever had in my life, it was so painful. More painful than childbirth. He was twisting his fingers as though he was looking for something. He couldn't tell me exactly what it was, but he said that I should be fine. Maybe 5 minutes later, a nurse came in. She said the doctor said that I had lymph nodes. And they prescribed me with 3 different drugs. And they put a shot in my butt. If you have the option to get in your arm, get it in your arm. When I got done, I went back home, started taking the drugs. The drugs made me feel really sick. I was shaky, fatigued, getting heat flashes, nausea, and my heart was racing super fast. And still with the drugs, the pain was not going away. A few days later, I went back to the hospital because the drugs just weren't working. And when I got checked out, I was diagnosed with something completely different than what I was told, which I will be getting into in part 3 on why I do not trust male doctors, specifically the ones that work with female bodies. So like I said, I went back to the ER and was diagnosed with something completely different. So all the prescriptions that the doctors had me taking were the wrong drugs. So the process of me being in the hospital, a different doctor had checked me out. When I told the other doctor what I had, or what I was told by their other doctor, he was like, lymph nodes? Who told you that? I said, one of your doctors, and he gasped. And he told me that I had a Bartholome cyst. He said he could drain it, but there's a risk of it coming back, and it did. And I told him, please drain it because it was very painful. The first step to draining it was numbing it, and he had to prick my vajayjay 10 times with the needle, which was also painful. Then he had to make a cut to drain it. At that point, I was about to pass out because I could literally feel everything. The numbing was not working. Plus, I was extremely embarrassed because there were like 5 other men with my legs busted open. And I cried the entire process. No one asked if I was okay. They rushed the whole process.
For some weird reason, my mother-in-law really wants to go into our bedroom whenever she comes over. On one occasion, I followed her as she went upstairs. I was going to get something for my child as the bedrooms are upstairs, and she walked past the bedroom on the main floor and up the stairs behind it. She didn't hear me, and I caught her walking straight into my room and rifling through bills on my dresser. She denied snooping, even though I had just watched her do it, and she said she was just going to use our bathroom because she couldn't find the other ones. She walked right past the one on the main floor and the other one in the upstairs hallway to go into our bedroom. Since that happened, I installed an exterior doorknob that requires a key on our bedroom door and one to the door to our office and spare bedroom. However, she's still always forgetting where the bathroom is and trying the bedroom and office door. This really ticks me off. My husband says that I just get annoyed at this because everything she does drives me crazy, and since we've put locks on the rooms we don't want her in, there really isn't a problem anymore. Well, over the holidays we had my in-laws over for dinner, and before they came I was searching for the bedroom keys. We hadn't used them in a while since we only lock the doors when my mother-in-law comes over. My husband told me that we didn't need to lock the doors since she wouldn't try to get into the rooms, and I insisted that she would because she loves to snoop. We went back and forth and decided to cover the doorknobs in super fine glitter to see if she'd try them. I did this once before, but my husband didn't believe me about that snooping to prove that she'd been in the rooms. Last time she ignored the glitter and we didn't say anything about it, but then my husband couldn't deny that she tried to snoop. So this time I covered the knobs in glitter, and for the office went a touch further and rigged a little folder of glitter over the door to the office before the in-laws came over. I left it one side unlocked, French doors, and it was set so if you walked into the room you would get covered in glitter. My husband goes out of his way to show his mom the main floor bathroom when they got here and specifically ask his parents and sister not to go upstairs. There's a baby gate so the kids can't get upstairs either. Well, guess who had to go to the bathroom and got covered in glitter and had it all over their hands and hair? She completely lost it and started screaming at me, so I yelled back, and now my husband is saying I went too far and that I'm an asshole. My mother-in-law also says that I'm an asshole, but my sister-in-law says I didn't do anything wrong and my mother-in-law deserved it for snooping. My father-in-law is Switzerland. Apparently her car is ruined now too because it's covered in glitter that she can't get cleaned up. Am I the asshole for setting a glitter trap to catch my mother-in-law trying to snoop?
Am I wrong for deleting my friends' wedding photos in front of them? I'm not really a photographer, I'm a dog groomer. I take lots of photos of dogs all day to put on my Facebook and Instagram. It's my thing, if that makes sense. I very seldom shoot things other than dogs, even if I have a nice setup. A friend got married a few days ago and wanting to save money, asked if I'd shoot it for them. I told him it's not really my forte, but he convinced me by saying he didn't care if they were perfect. They were on a shoestring budget and I agreed to shoot it for $250, which is nothing for a 10-hour event. On the day of, I'm driving around following the bride as she goes from appointment to appointment before the ceremony, taking photos along the way. I shoot the ceremony itself, and during the reception, I'm shooting speeches and people mingling. I started around 11 a.m. and was due to finish around 7:30 p.m. Around 5 p.m., food is being served and I was told I cannot stop to eat because I need to be a photographer. In fact, they didn't save me a spot at any table. I'm getting tired and at this point kind of regretting doing this for next to nothing. It's also unbelievably hot. The venue is an old veterans legion and it's like 110 degrees and there's no AC. He tells me I need to either be a photographer or leave without pay. With the heat, being hungry, being generally annoyed with the circumstances, I asked if he was sure and he said yes. So I deleted all the photos I took in front of him and took off saying I'm not his photographer anymore. If I was to be paid $250, honestly at that point I would have paid $250 for just a glass of cold water and somewhere to sit for 5 minutes. So was I wrong in this situation? Am I wrong for telling my sister her rainbow baby isn't special? I, 27 female, have a set of twins, Ben and Betty. They just turned 6. My sister, 32 female, has Connor, who is 4. My sister and her husband lost their first baby due to SIDS. It was devastating for the whole family and I was behind my sister 100% of the way. I couldn't imagine what it was like. Anyway, when she found out she was pregnant with Connor, we were all excited. The pregnancy went well and Connor got a good bill of health. I love my sister and I love my nephew, but my sister is convinced that because he's her rainbow baby, that means he can do whatever he wants. Connor is incredibly spoiled and a brat. He throws fits to get his way, hits, kicks, cries, whatever it takes. My sister and her husband give him no discipline. He's their rainbow baby, so that is their excuse for his bad behavior. Their lives are to serve for whatever Connor wants. My twins just turned 6 and we had a small party for them. Everyone was having a good time except for Connor. He wanted cake, didn't like the games, wanted to watch TV, wanted ice cream now, didn't want other kids to touch him, and etc. Basically, the whole party, Connor threw a tantrum. The final straw came at present time. My husband went to get the gifts out of the living room only to find Connor had ripped nearly all of them open. My sister made excuses, saying he was just excited and wanted to play with my kids' new toys. I lost it. I told her that Connor isn't special, that he's a brat and he's been ruining the party since he got here. My sister immediately went on that he's her rainbow baby and he didn't mean it and maybe I should have put the presents where he couldn't get to them. They were in the living room and the party was outside. No one was inside. I lost my temper. I know I did. This was my kid's party though. I said some nasty things to her. I told her that Connor isn't a baby anymore and he's not special and she's raising a self-centered brat who will grow up to be a self-centered adult. She left the party, and then my parents called. They said they understood my frustrations and everything about the situation. Then they said they still feel like I should apologize to my sister. Why? Because I have 2 healthy kids while she lost 1 and she's still having to deal with it? I told them no. My sister should apologize for how her son acted at the party. My husband and the guests who were at the party are on my side. My sister hasn't really spoken to me in a few days, just posted passive-aggressive things on social media, which I just blocked. Am I wrong for kicking my brother out for announcing his wife's pregnancy right after I announced my daughter had cancer? Just to make sure I represent both sides of the conflict, my brother and his wife suffered from not having kids for years. It impacted them greatly. They love the kids in the family but always wish to have kids of their own. Lately, we got busy with my daughter Megan, who is 12, with health problems. She started suffering from anemia, loss of appetite, and recurrent fevers. We've taken her to the pediatrician, and from there we've learned that she has cancer. It was so devastating, I didn't want to tell my family right away. Most of them have chronic conditions, and this type of news might trigger a negative reaction because they love Megan and would give everything to see her healthy. My husband and I decided to gather the family at my house this past Wednesday to announce Megan's diagnosis. My aunt didn't take it well because she holds Megan dear, so she was rightfully the most devastated one. After a few minutes of complete silence, my brother started moving in his seat, saying there's something very serious he wanted to tell everyone. He was hesitant, but then he and his wife stood up, and then he said that they found out that they were finally expecting. The family were conflicted. Some got up to congratulate them, and some remained seated. I remained seated, and my brother then approached me and expressed how sorry he was that they had to tell us in these circumstances, but said he couldn't wait since this is a huge deal for them after years of waiting and because everyone was present. Literally everyone was there since I said the announcement we wanted to make concerned Megan. I argued with him about how he thought this was an appropriate time and asked if Megan mattered to him at all since he didn't take a minute to realize he was just diagnosed with cancer. He started reminding me how many years he and his wife suffered from frustration and disappointment for not being able to have kids and argued that because he wasn't able to be a father until now, he's 37, he felt he was missing out on so much for many years and that I didn't have to finally tell him congratulations but should at least not guilt him for feeling overwhelmed and excited to finally be a father. He said I knew exactly how much he adores Megan and I shouldn't even think otherwise. Then said he was just sharing good news after hearing the bad news and there was nothing wrong with that. I told him and his wife to leave the house right then. He said he won't argue anymore because of how tense I felt but will expect me to apologize at some point. Some family agreed with me but my parents thought I shouldn't have taken my anger out on him like that and that he'll always remember my reaction to the news he gave and should apologize after I've calmed down. Am I wrong for taking my friend to court after she kicked me out of the bridal party for cutting my hair? For my friend's 3-day wedding, I had to buy 3 different dresses, including alterations and specific shoes, which totaled over $700. She also wanted specific hairstyles for each day. Unfortunately, starting in March, my hair started to deteriorate. Due to health reasons, my hair was falling out in chunks, and in May, I made the difficult decision to cut my hair. I told the bride about my decision 2 weeks before the wedding, and she didn't say anything bad. The following week, she came over to my house, and when she was about to leave, she brought up that she was concerned about my haircut, and I told her it would look good, even though I wouldn't be in uniform with the other bridesmaids. The following day, I received this message. After our recent conversations, I'd like to remind you of my boundaries. I've been very accommodating and graceful, but I cannot allow you to disrespect me. As you know, my wedding has been something I've dreamt of for many years. My husband and I have invested a lot of money into the video and photos of this day, and as we reflect on this day in the future, we want to see our vision reflected in the record. Since I asked each of you to be my bridesmaids in 2019, I've been very clearly and very communicative in my request. The timing of your decision to cut your hair and not income in advance is very upsetting to me. I would have felt respected if you had communicated with me more than a week prior to the wedding, so we could have worked together to find a collaborative solution. Your inconsistencies have concerned me, and while I sympathize with your health condition, I'm not willing to compromise my vision to accommodate you, or anyone else, when you have informed me in advance and we could have found a better solution. Since this is something you can no longer fully commit to, I need you to please step down from participating in my wedding. This was 3 days before the wedding. I immediately sent her and her husband an invoice asking them to reimburse for the dresses and shoes, keeping in mind that one of the dresses is still in her possession even though I paid for it. I was told I was inconsistent and selfish after I spent the past 2 weeks helping her plan the wedding shower. I worked with another bridesmaid to surprise her with a bridal shower after our bachelorette trip had to be canceled. I spent hours helping her out with wedding details. When she asked me to help her tone up before the wedding, I sent her a personalized workout program and even went with her to the gym to show her the ropes. When I agreed to be her bridesmaid, I was more than willing to oblige with what she asked, even if at times it was a lot of time and money. So, am I wrong for taking her to court because she kicked me out for cutting my hair?
Story time about how I'm hooking up with my boss's husband. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sending me on Instagram. Let's get this out of the way. Yes, I'm a homewrecker. Am I proud of it? No, but just hear me out.
A few years ago, I had moved to a new city and didn't have any friends at all. My goal was to get a job and make some new friends. Luckily, I got a job right away. After working there for a few weeks, I noticed that my boss would get really jealous anytime her husband would come into the
the store. Here's the reason why. Her husband is super attractive. He's like way more attractive than she is. Anyway, there were a bunch of girls that worked at the store. I wasn't the only one. But it was like some kind of unspoken rule that you never spoke to the boss's husband. After a month of working there, I would avoid him at all costs. But here's the thing. He actually would go out of his way to come say hi to me. At first I thought this was flattering, but then I realized I could be playing with fire. So I decided to be really cold towards him. Well, this didn't work because it actually made him want to talk to me even more. A few days later, I get a text from an unknown number. Can you guess who it is? Yep, it's my boss's husband. In the message, he basically said that if he had done anything wrong to let him know because he didn't want me to feel uncomfortable around him. That's when I told him that none of the girls at the store were allowed to talk to him or even make eye contact with him. And that was the reason why I didn't speak to him. He told me that I must have misunderstood because he's friends with all of the girls who work there, which I knew was not true. The next day I go into work and he actually shows up at lunchtime. I was by myself at the store. It's like he almost knew that I was there by myself, so he decided to come over. And he started flirting. He pretty much complimented everything about me and asked me if I was making friends. Then he asked me for permission to follow me on Instagram. Of course, I was like, yeah, you can follow me. After that, we basically talked on Instagram almost every single day. He would watch and reply to all of my stories. One time I posted a story of me having dinner with some guy, and he replied right away and asked me if I was on a date. I said yes. Then he told me that he was actually jealous. I didn't know how to reply, so I just said LOL. Then he said, what are we gonna do about this? I told him probably nothing because his wife would get upset. Then he said, I've got my ways, don't worry. He asked me to go to the movies and we went, and we basically made out the entire time. After the movie, we sat in his car and he told me that he hated his wife and that he was planning on divorcing her. He was even crying. I mean, I had to believe him. He asked me to keep everything secret, and of course I said yes. I mean, I didn't want to lose my job. This went on for 2 months. One day he calls me and tells me that his wife actually read our messages. Part 2 is up. My boss's husband, aka the guy I'm having an affair with, he calls me up to tell me that she actually saw the text messages between us. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I repeat, this is not my story time. Luckily, he did not save my number under my name. So basically, she saw messages between him and some other girl. He was really freaking out. But that's when I told him this is your way out. According to him, he hated his wife. So I told him this is perfect, just ask her for a divorce. That's when he told me there was no way he would ever divorce her. He told me that she was the only one who made money in the relationship and that if they ever got divorced, she would leave him nothing. He also told me that he was no longer attracted to her, but that the money was just too good and he had to stay in the relationship. At that point, I started feeling really bad. I was under the impression that he absolutely hated her and that she was terrible towards him, but apparently not. Thankfully, she didn't know it was me, the one that was messaging him. He actually made up a lie and told her it was some girl from Instagram that he met. When I showed up to work later that day, my boss was in a really bad mood, and I knew why. Suddenly, she tells all of us girls to pull out our phones and open our text messages. My stomach dropped because stupid me had not deleted all the messages. She started going one by one checking everyone's phone, but luckily I was able to delete everything by the time she got to mine. That's when she told us all to go home. As soon as I got in my car, I decided to call him. I told him what had happened and he told me that everything should be under control and that she believes what he said. He asked me if we could meet up and I said yes. I just couldn't resist the temptation. A few days later, I came into work early by mistake. I find him talking to one of the other girls. When he saw me, he literally backed away from her. I instantly got upset and realized that he had probably been having affairs with a bunch of the other girls. I decided to confront the girl that he was talking to and she told me the truth. They had been having an affair for a year now and that he had probably had affairs with all the girls that worked there. No wonder my boss was so paranoid. When I asked him about it, he totally denied it. I kind of want to tell my boss now and just confess everything, but I'd risk losing my job, which pays really well and I actually love. I'm hoping you guys can tell me what to do. Help me.
As much as it pains me to say this, before my daughter turned 17, I didn't feel any love for her. I didn't even like her really. She certainly thought I did, but on the inside, I just couldn't feel anything but annoyance towards her. She was very manipulative and needy and needed constant attention. I know that this is a common feeling in parents, but I feel so ashamed to actually say it out loud. Two particularly traumatic instances for me were one, where I was going through an extremely tough time and she wasn't there for me. She never gave me the support or comfort that I needed, and there is no worse feeling than being betrayed by family. She was a teenager and old enough to know better. And two, there was a period when she was really pestering me to take her to a psychologist, and one time I caught her forcing herself to throw up. I didn't know what to do and felt completely helpless. She's 18 now and lots better. She almost never complains about anything and is always there when I need a shoulder to cry on. My two older children were visiting last night and we were discussing family memories, and while we were joking, I mentioned in passing to her, "You really fucked me up good." She asked what I meant and I told her about the two incidents I mentioned before. She got quiet and eventually said, "You know, I really needed your help back then, and you just wouldn't." I told her that I needed her help too, but she came back with, "I'm your daughter." I told her, "Yes, and I'm your mother. What's your point?" She ended up going home with her older sister and she won't return any of my calls. Her older sister called and told me that I had really hurt her last night and that I needed to apologize. I personally don't feel like I owe my daughter anything. She abused me her whole life.
Am I the asshole for not wanting my fiance's parents to move in next door? My fiance and I live in a duplex that I inherited from my late aunt.
My aunt was wheelchair bound, so her unit was renovated to be wheelchair accessible. The unit my fiance and I live in do not have the same accommodations. My brother's partner is disabled and uses a wheelchair. While they're renting a wheelchair-friendly apartment, their landlord has decided to raise the rent next year by a significant amount. It will put a serious strain on their finances. I told my brother they can move in my aunt's place when their lease is over. We agreed I would charge a token amount for rent and my brother would help me with maintenance. A few days ago, my fiance told me that his father had been diagnosed with cancer. Am I the asshole for not wanting my fiance's parents to move in next door? A few days ago, my fiance told me that his father had been diagnosed with cancer. While thankfully it's not terminal, he does need to undergo chemo for a while. My fiance asked me if his parents could move in next door since we live near the hospital and they currently live 2 hours away. I told my fiance I was fine with his parents moving into our unit with us, but I'm not going back on my agreement with my brother and brother-in-law. He said this wasn't a feasible solution. He argued that my brother can wait another year or so to move in and his dad needs treatment soon. They can renew their lease and I can help them with rent. My in-laws are well off and can afford to rent a place that fits their needs.